what kind of office is that? What's your activity? What's your activity in that office?
What are you doing the 700?
No, not yours. I mean the office you are mentioning. It's news office.
Each other by Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Sorry, we missed the road. Actually, we are in front of a railway station and a supermarket, I think. A railway station is the Val de las Fuentes. Hold on, please. Okay, hold on, please.
Calle de Marquez de Valdivia.
All right, we try to find it anyway. Thank you very much.
بعد همین که اتو خیلی نزدیکه. آقا
Hopefully we find it. What is it? Chemical war? Actually, I am in front of Francisco Delgado, number 11. Could you please come down? Thank you very much. Bye.
I'm very sorry that I couldn't help you, but I couldn't realize about the places where you was. So.
You are a freelancer?
Yes, I'm totally freelance, yes. I have I give you my card. Thank you
very much. Thank you. Yours.
Mr. Aranzadi.
Me. Yes.
All right.
Aranzadi, that's my name.
Redmond.
I can get on the airplane.
Jones.
Human rights and current affairs.
How was the situation there?
In Gaza, it's bad.
I'm an independent reporter, and this is the third time that I travel to Iraq to cover the conflict that has broken up this country. There is almost no Western journalists remaining in Iraq.
They have lost the elections. So this is the office of Explorer Films, a production company. I have my own production company, Independent Docs, and I used to produce and I used to direct documentaries about conflicts. Now we are here in Madrid in the office of Explorer Films. It's a production company dedicated that they make focus specifically in documentaries about current affairs and about wildlife. Right now I'm editing a documentary about Somalia, about the Islamic courts and the conflict in that country. And I would like to talk with you about my experience in Iraq as a freelance reporter during the war in the 2003 and several times after the war, embedded with the Iraqi National Guard and also with the US Army. I have covered 8 conflicts around the world. The first time that I went to a conflict, it was in September of 2002. I went to North Iraq to cover the war in between the Kurdish guerrillas and Ansar al-Islam.
Over here, guys. Over here.
I achieved a permit to temporarily live together with the American soldiers of the advanced base Mackenzie. It is the first time that a journalist is going to accompany them in their routine.
The first time that I went to Iraq, it was in September of 2002. I wanted to know what's going on in the north of Iraq with that forgotten conflict in between Ansar al-Islam and the Kurdish guerrillas. Everybody was talking about the next occupation of Iraq, but no one was talking about one war that it was already going on the mountains in between Iraq and Iran. After that, I wanted to go back to see and to document the process of the invasion, the occupation of Iraq. And I made it by myself again in the north front line. I covered since the first day till the last day that Tikrit fell. Basically, I make news for TV and radio. And after that, I wanted to see 2 years later, in the 2005, how was the security. So, when the war was ended in April, May of the 2003, I was asking myself 1 year later, 2 years later, is this war really over? And I decided to go by myself, alone, into the Sunny Triangle.
These soldiers live settled in the heart of the tragically famous Sunny Triangle, the main zone that opposed with the greatest resistance to the American occupation. To them, the word war is a reality that remains in use.
Me with my camera in bed with the Iraqi National Guard. I went to Mosul and to Kirkuk, and I covered and I documented the situation. The situation in this forgotten area, in this place where we didn't receive any kind of sequence, image, nothing going further than that seconds that we received it through the TV news. And I found a country totally devastated, totally out of control.
Mackenzie is a small city isolated from the world. It has its own rules and everyone living here has to strictly obey them.
After that, also in the 2005, I really became interested about what was going on with the US soldiers. Many of them, they were dying, and we used to see all the time in the TV news to Condoleezza Rice, to Donald Rumsfeld, and to George Bush or Tony Blair talking about Iraq.
Nothing less.
But we never used to see the reality on the ground, what the soldiers they think, what the soldiers they do. I got an embed from the US Army. They made it quite easy for me until I started to record some of their casualties. Everything changed then. But I really had access to some really interesting declarations and comments from the soldiers. Many of them, they are so afraid. Many of them, most of them, they are fighting for their buddies, for their friends.
It's a really dangerous situation in some places, and when I first got here, I was fighting for what I believe in, and now I'm fighting for my buddies. You know, you're just fighting to survive and get out of here now. In the beginning it was all this, patriotic, I'm a soldier, I'm a hero type thing, and now it's just I want me and my buddies to live and get out of here.
And as one of them, he says in the documentary, one US sniper, he says, we came here as soldiers, as heroes, and now we just want to go home, and especially to try to save the life of my friends, and of course, save my own life, their own lives.
It's just a job, somebody's got to do it.
Terry participated in the 2003 invasion. He knows what it is to go back home and no one understands what he has lived, not even his family. His wife, with whom he has a daughter, has decided to get a divorce. Maybe that is why he did not care in coming back to Iraq.
I decided to call to this documentary Blackout. Why Blackout? Blackout is the protocol that the US Army they use when some soldier they get killed or they have casualties. The rest of the soldiers, when they go back to the base, they cannot call home. They cannot talk with anyone during 24 hours. It's the army who has the duty to communicate those casualties or those deaths to the family.
Internet access is also totally controlled. The lack of communication is even greater when a soldier dies or is injured in combat. In that moment starts up the blackout, an information blackout of 48 hours in which all communications with the outside are cut off. The objective is to avoid interference of intermediaries so that it is the own army that informs all of what has happened to the victim families.
And I think that there is really a blackout also in the Sunny Triangle, because we don't have a feedback information. I mean, we don't have many journalists on the ground and we don't know what's going on. And I had a blackout at the end of my documentary when I started to record US soldiers dying, US soldiers that they get injured, and they forbidden me to continue recording. They give me full access, I'm very glad for that, and that's something very good, but when I started to record the casualties, they didn't like this too much. And this is my last story about Gaza and about the fightings in between Hamas, Fatah, and the Israeli army. The Iraqi people, first of all, is a very complex society. It's not as easy as some people they told us before the war started. They are Sunni, they are Shia, they are Kurdi, Christian, Turkoman. So the whole picture of Iraq is not this simple and reductionist concept that some people try to sell us.
There is no difference between Shia and Sunni and Kurdish. Now it is difference between them.
Before with Saddam, no difference.
This is caused by the American forces.
There is no rest.
The Iraqi people, they are suffering now so much. I mean, most of the victims, they are civilians. Victims from al-Sarkawi, Al-Qaeda, whatever people. Victims from, many times, those intelligence weapons from the US Army. Many times in the Western countries we talk about the terrorism and we are very afraid of terrorism. But we should realize that 90% of the victims of the terrorism, they are Muslims, and most of them from Iraq. They are not British, they are not Spanish, they are not French. They are Muslim people from Iraq. So we should really try to, I don't know exactly how, I don't have the key, the solution for this conflict and for the peace, but we should really try to make more focus on them and not that much on us.
Outside in the garden, the prisoner waits to be interrogated. I ask them, why do they keep him hooded?
The reason we put the bag over his head is so that he can't see us.
One of the strongest memories that I have of the war of the 2003, it is the killing of Paul Moran. Paul Moran, an Australian cameraman from ABC, he was the first journalist being killed during the war. He was killed by a suicide bomber of Ansar al-Islam. We were working together, taking images in a crossroads, in a junction, and when I left, a suicide bomber exploded himself and killing Paul Moran. It was a very dramatic moment for me, and it was just the first journalist dying, the first in this huge process of journalists dying in Iraq.
I don't exit from my home since 2 days because I lost my baby.
I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. Thank you. Shukran.
As in all wars, death is lived as a painful routine.
So we can say that Iraq now is much more insecure than how it was before. We can say that Iraq is the conflict with more deaths, with more killings. Now those days is like, I guess like 90 journalists that they have been killed in 3 years. This means that more journalists that have died in Iraq in 3 years than in 20 years of Vietnam War, or than in 10 years in the Balkans War, even maybe more than in the Second World War. She is Laura. She is the editor of my last documentary about Somalia, about the conflict there in Somalia, in the Horn of Africa, in between the Islamic courts and the transitional government from Baidoa and Ethiopia. And he is Eduardo. He takes care of also of the post-production process and about the graphics. And here is Fernando, that he is specialized in directing documentaries about wildlife. He has a long experience, and he is one of the souls of Explora Films. Well, and she's Marta, who is the responsible of the pictures. She takes care of all the editing also.
Is he alright?
There are some kind of things that I didn't want to record in Iraq. For instance, in my experience with the US soldiers, you can see it at the end of my documentary Blackout. There was an attack of the insurgency against one of the patrols from the Americans, and a lot of soldiers, they become burned.
He's got third-degree burns from here down. His gear is burned to shit.
It's just hanging. So Cash came out walking, and his team was just hanging off. He didn't have any gun.
and the images they were really hard. It's not that I don't show that images in the documentary, it's that I didn't even record it because I think it was too much, too specific, and maybe even too unnecessary to go that close to the suffering of those soldiers, those victims.
Yeah, 7. That's a cat. Salerno.
They said a soldier has died and many others are seriously wounded. The blackout starts. As of this moment and for the next 48 hours, all the communications with the outside world are cut off. As of me, they either do not allow me to continue recording.